What does it truly mean to accept ourselves, flaws and all? And how can we cultivate this depth of self-acceptance? This show is about the intimacy of self-acceptance and creating a secure relationship with yourself. You're listening to or watching the Sedona Soul Sisters Show, where we share psychic guidance and healing for embodied spiritual awakening. I'm Christel Arcucci, and I'm on a mission to support spiritual practitioners to access your intuition, unlock your psychic gifts, and live your purpose. A big thank you to our listeners all over the world, and a special shout out and blast of love to our listeners in the North Pole, Alaska. Is it you, Santa? You can schedule sessions in Sedona or virtual psychic readings, soul contract sessions, sound healings, yoga, meditation, Reiki, angel readings, starseed readings, mediumship, and more at sedonasoulsisters.com. It's time to repair the healing web on planet Earth. I've recently been in a deep and personal exploration of self-acceptance. In past episodes, I've talked about my own personal journey and health challenges growing up. Luckily, my health is great now, yet the health challenges and the environment that I grew up in put me onto a healing path and a personal development path at a very young age. And one of the challenges of being on a personal development path, or even a path in the exploration of human potential, is that it can subtly be reinforcing or creating beliefs that you are not good enough now. You need to be fixed because somehow you are flawed and need to be improved, which of course is not the intention, but it is the challenge of striving for something that we will achieve in the future. And I believe the same is true of many self-care practices. While self-care practices are designed to support us to make ourselves feel better, to take better care of ourselves, it can subtly be a pattern of reinforcing the belief that we're not okay now. In my own practice, I was exploring that I have a deep sense of self-love, yet then I noticed that self-acceptance is a different frequency and actually very different. When I started in this exploration, I wasn't so good at the self-acceptance part, which is why I've been in this exploration. And of course, I want to share it with you so that you can benefit. So if we look at self-acceptance is the act or state of understanding and recognizing one's own abilities and limitations. And the key with that is it's not only our greatness, but it's also the past challenges, the wounds, the limitations, the things that we trip ourselves up on in our own lives. It is being willing to be okay with that too at the same time. Whereas for me, self-love, I can love myself and still want to change myself. And maybe it's just semantics, yet this episode is deeply looking at how the practice of self-love or self-care can reinforce the pattern of I'm not okay right now. In so many episodes, you know that my focus is to help us be anchored in the present moment, to enjoy where we are, and at the same time be cultivating our sense of being and doing to create more of what we want in life, to also navigate the challenges that life presents with greater grace, ease, love, compassion for ourselves and others. A core aspect of my work is creating a secure relationship with ourselves, our pleasure, our power, and our relationship with money. I want to dive deeply into a secure relationship with ourselves today, because this distinction of the difference between we can be doing self-care yet subtly reinforcing the pattern that we're not good enough, we're not okay as we are. A secure relationship with ourselves means that we are giving ourselves grace. We're not judging, criticizing, diminishing ourselves. We're not rejecting ourselves or abandoning ourselves in our relationship with ourselves, in relationship with our career, in relationship with our loved ones. That our primary source of secure relationship attachment is with ourselves. I am the only one I will have a relationship with for my entire life. And I literally cannot escape, right? On those days when I am annoying myself, there is no escape. From my perspective, this core of focusing on being whole, healed, and in a secure relationship with ourselves is essential in the health of all of the other relationships that we're in. So if you're not familiar with attachment theory, I'm going to give you a very small taste of it just so we can continue this episode and you can have a little more context about what I'm talking about. So secure attachment is a theory in the psychological world that talks about the connection or connections we developed with our primary caregivers. I believe that we can shift our attachment style. If our attachment style is set with our primary caregiver in the first, especially 6 months, but about 6 or 7 years of our life, it is set. Yet, with healing work and conscious work, you can shift out of an unhealthy attachment style from your childhood into a more secure attachment. So most often, the conversation about attachment styles is about other people. Yet my work is fundamentally about creating that secure attachment, that secure relationship with ourselves first, and then that will inform and influence our relationship with others. So if we're looking at attachment on a spectrum, on one side of the spectrum, you have insecure or anxious, which is a fear of being rejected or abandoned. And it's also a deep desire for connection. On the other side of the spectrum is avoidant, which has a fear of needing to reject or abandon themselves or losing themselves in a relationship. So they have a desire for freedom. And as you might guess, these two styles of attachment are often drawn towards each other. That one is an insecure or anxious style of attachment, the other is avoidant. We know what happens then. When we are looking at the fundamental desires, which are the core of what the desire is underneath the fear, the desire for freedom in the avoidant, and the desire for connection in the insecure or anxious. Both of those desires are healthy and essential in a healthy relationship. I like to think of the desire for connection and freedom as the essential nature of a secure relationship. Because this episode and my work is first about creating that secure relationship with ourselves, it's looking at the ways in which we are doing the opposite of self-acceptance, right? If we are self-criticizing, judging ourselves, abandoning ourselves in our own relationship, or neglecting ourselves, and it can even go so far as self-attack or self-abuse. Fundamentally pulling all of the energy and attention into our own bodies to develop that secure attachment with ourselves. And this piece of self-acceptance is so powerful with this deep exploration of personal development and spiritual mastery. Often there is a desire that we are striving for, but we can lose the connection to where we are now, the appreciation for where we are, for who we are, for what we've been through, and to be okay with where we are, and for that to not fall into being complacent or collapsing. It seems like there's often this, it's one or the other. It's a level of collapse. I'm collapsing into my old patterns and giving up on myself. Or it's this intense striving to be someplace or be someone that we're not in the moment. So bringing in this piece of self-acceptance so that we can dial down the self-judgment, the self-criticism, the self-attack. In the last episode 152 in Shadow Work, I did a whole section on talking about our self-talk and mirror work. So if you find that self-criticism or self-judgment is a big thing for you, I would encourage you to go back and listen to that episode. In establishing a solid foundation of self-acceptance, a core aspect that is required and also creates incredible healing is repairing our trust in ourselves and keeping our word to ourselves. No matter how healthy or unhealthy your childhood was, when you didn't have a level of power to control all aspects of our life. And let's be real, none of us have full power to control every single aspect in our life, even as adults. Yet when we are children, especially in an unhealthy environment, it can be almost required to betray ourselves, to betray our own intuition, our own desires, to keep ourselves safe. And that comes through in people pleasing or in being the rescuer, of being hypervigilant about who's around and what their feelings are and how I can keep everyone else happy. There's a cost to keeping the peace, which is undermining our trust in ourselves and our intuition, often because we don't have the power and the authority to do it differently. Yet those habits, it's important to restore them, to restore our intuition, to restore our trust, to keep our word to ourselves. It can be so much easier if you make a commitment to meet somebody else to be there. Yet if you say, I'm going to go on a walk today, or I'm going to take time to journal, or I'm going to make food for meal prep this week so that I have healthy food available, or whatever the thing is, if it's only for ourselves, it can be easy to not keep our word, especially if you have a lot of demands around you. For example, if you have children, if you are a caretaker for a parent, or you're in that role of being the one that holds up everyone else, your own desires can be not on the list. So repairing intuition and self-trust and doing what we say we're going to do is really important. An aspect of that is acknowledging if we have broken our word to ourselves, and to create success for ourselves in taking on smaller practices one at a time instead of overloading. I'm going to change everything in my life now. Right? Because this whole episode is about self-acceptance, which is partly to be like, right now, I am okay. Right now, I accept who I am, what I have done, accepting where I am in my life and what the reality of my situation is. Yet I find that so few people can move into acceptance without collapsing. Because especially in our culture, there is this dominant drive to do more, to have more, to constantly achieve, to constantly be striving. So if there isn't this momentum of striving and bettering and improving, then it's like collapse. So we're looking for that place of acceptance, of self-acceptance. Today, who I am is acceptable. I can accept who I am. to dial into that frequency as I've been in this personal exploration of self-acceptance. For me, there's a level of peace in self-acceptance that I wasn't finding in self-love. In my expression of self-love, I am dismantling it to rebuild something totally different, because I do have a high level of self-care. I don't do it perfectly. Part of why I have a strong system of self-care is because I had to in order to survive my childhood. I was very sick as a child, in and out of the hospital on medication and not breathing and in the emergency room and allergies and asthma, and it was a catastrophe. As a child, I had to develop these practices in order to survive. So luckily for me, my coping strategies, my survival strategies as a child are healthier. There is that element that I am working on clearing out of my personal system that reinforces the belief that who I am and where I am now is not good enough, is not okay. Because fundamentally, there are moments where I feel like I'm not where I want to be. I'm not the woman that I want to be, which is neither self-acceptance nor self-love. Ultimately, human love is never unconditional as much as we want it to be, because we're human. While I have been on a deep path of self-healing and self-love, there are these changes that I am making into my own practice to include self-acceptance, which for me, there is an element of peace and calm and presence and self-acceptance that feels different to me than self-love. There's also an invitation in this exploration of self-acceptance to dial back the striving to change how I look, or to hide or conceal where I am in my career. This desire for external validation, which makes it a bit messy and creates that self-care, can fall into this practice of I have to be better, I need to be different than I am, I need to look younger, I need to this or whatever, that I'm trying to fix myself rather than tending to myself like I am a sacred sanctuary. Rebuilding trust, cultivating intuition are core elements in this journey of self-acceptance, being okay where I am, accepting who I am, where I am, being in the present moment. And from that place of presence, of acceptance, then from that profound place of being, then the actions that we take come from a different energy, rather than I am only taking care of myself so that I look younger, or so that other people will have a certain perspective of me. Self-acceptance helps us come into this place of greater authentic truth. Am I okay with who I am now? Am I okay with where I am now? And this exploration has been so profound in giving me access to a level of ease and peace that it helps me move out of a state of fight or flight, or a stressed state that somehow I'm not where I am supposed to be. I'm not where I should be. I don't look as good as I should look, or whatever this dialogue that often comes from the outside is telling me as a woman, as an aging human, this message that I am not as valuable as I was when I was younger. So that is happening on the outside. Yet this practice of building this secure relationship with myself, knowing that I have got me, that I will always be there, that I'm doing better on keeping my word to myself. I am doing better about showing up for myself on a daily basis to tend to my body, mind, and heart, to explore the expression of my soul. Yet it's coming from a place of presence rather than a place of seeking external validation or trying to measure up to an external standard. And that makes such a huge difference so that we don't fall into the trap of I'm taking care of myself or I'm doing these self-care practices to fix myself. Self-talk is a core element of building a secure relationship with ourselves and shifting out of a relationship of self-criticism, self-judgment, self-nagging, self-abandonment, self-attack, all of these things that can come really naturally if we don't pause, check ourselves, and reset those relationships to move the self-talk from one of a destructive nature to one of self-acceptance, to one of support, to one of self-love, and cultivating that inner voice and shifting your relationship with self-talk. If this is a newer practice for you, my suggestion is number one, just notice when it's happening. And as soon as you notice it, take a breath and say, I'm sorry, and your name. So like I would say, and I like bringing my hand to my heart, I'm sorry, Christel. I'm sorry I said that. Because the downward spiral of self-criticism and negative self-talk is, I can't believe I did that. Why did I say that? Why am I so mean to myself? I'm never going to change. Pull the plug on that. Pull the plug, neutralize it, take a moment to apologize. And then you can, first step, apologize, take a breath, and focus on what you want to say or what you want to feel, even if you don't feel it yet. From my perspective, it's not helpful to be like, oh, I love you, Christel, if it's not true. Or I think you're amazing and beautiful and gorgeous. In restoring self-trust, it's important to state what is true. So if the first step in changing the inner voice, the inner self-talk, is to say, I'm sorry, I want to do better, and that's where you are, then practice self-acceptance. If you can go further in focusing on, I want to be more supportive of you. I want to see the good in you. So that's stating the desire of the kind of relationship that you want to have. I want to be in a secure relationship with you. I want to be on your team. The next step after that would be, I support you. I want to do better at demonstrating that support for you. I am cheering for you. I see how much progress you have made. I know this practice of self-acceptance is challenging, and I'm on your team and we're in this together. So you can see how I gave different examples depending upon where you are. And if self-talk is new for you, at first it's going to feel super weird. Good. The way it gets easier is with practice. And bonus points if you look in your own eyes in the mirror as you're saying this. And I can't tell you how many clients have struggled with not only changing their self-talk, but especially when we add the mirror to the equation, it often brings tears. And to me, that is a good sign, a recognition of repairing a rupture that was probably created in childhood. And so this repair work of shifting your relationship with yourself, cultivating self-acceptance, shifting the inner dialogue, being supportive and being on your own team, demonstrating that, looking in your own eyes and saying it is so powerful. So the last piece I want to focus on in this exploration of self-acceptance is intimacy. For some people, intimacy with other people may be easier. Like if you've been in a long-term relationship with someone else, or if you have children, which is a very intimate relationship, meaning that it's close, it's deep, it's very connected. And those types of relationship, there's very little space, the depth of intimacy. And here we're talking about seeing someone, knowing someone so deeply. I know these days that most people use the word intimacy in exchange for sex, and obviously that's not what I'm using the word intimacy here. I am using the word intimacy as depth of connection, and also the level of vulnerability that comes with the mental and emotional closeness from a long-term partnership or even relationships with siblings or parents or friends. There can be a level of intimacy that I'm talking about that for a lot of people, that kind of intimacy is going to be easier with other people and not as easy with ourselves, which opens the door to this practice of working and cultivating this secure relationship with yourself, being willing to be intimate with all aspects of yourself. The easiest place to begin to open this level of intimacy with ourselves, being willing to have a secure relationship with ourselves, stopping the old patterns or habits of self-criticism or self-abandonment or rejection or all of these things, is if you have a relationship with the divine, or if you have children, you can think about the kind of love that you feel from whatever your expression of the divine is. Feeling that love from God or Goddess or Source, and letting yourself feel that and be in the self-inquiry of, can I love myself in the same way that God or the Great Mother loves me? Can I be in the practice of self-acceptance the same way that I accept my children, that I accept who they are? I love them. I accept them, even if they annoy me sometimes. Can you be in that personal self-inquiry and that practice of being in the question? Because when you pose the question to your mind, rather than saying, why can't I do this? Why is this so impossible? Why can't I accept myself? You're just running up against a brick wall. Yet if you pose the question in a way, how can I be in the deeper experience of self-acceptance? How can I feel self-acceptance more often in my day? How can I restore self-trust? How can I repair my intuition? How can I cultivate a secure relationship with myself, knowing that I am no longer going to neglect, abandon, or criticize myself? These questions of self-inquiry create the opening for possibilities to come through, which is a great way to pivot out of the old habits of trying to fix or diminishing yourself or not accepting where you are or who you are in your life. In the practice of asking, how can I experience more self-acceptance? What can I focus on today that's going to open the pathway for deeper connection to my intuition? Posing these questions either for contemplation, self-inquiry practice, journaling, or speaking out loud to yourself will open new pathways, and it will also help turn your energy and attention onto the timeline of what you want to experience. Thank you for being a part of our community. I'm honored to support your embodied spiritual awakening. Are you ready for a personalized rites of passage with me? The Embody Soul Purpose series focuses on integrating parts of you that were lost along the way in a soul retrieval process and activation of all 7 main chakras or energy centers. Embrace all aspects of your past, no matter what happened, so that you can create the greatest chapter of your life, no matter what your age. For more information, you can visit sedonasoulsisters.com/soul. Leave a review and follow on your favorite podcast app. Until next time, breathe gently, follow your guidance, and create miracles.